Kasean Pryor is back. James Scott might not be.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Thursday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Alden Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show. And I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All you have to do, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Some key roster news over the past couple of days. Kasean Pryor is officially back for next season. However, that might not apply for James Scott, who entered the transfer portal in the last hour leading up to the deadline. We'll discuss that. We'll also talk about the multiple portal football commitments that have popped up over the past couple of days. And like I said, I wanted to bring my recording equipment to Texas. Of course, if you're watching this, even if you're listening to this, you can tell that I'm not in my regular recording office, actually in a living room of an Airbnb. So video quality is not the greatest. I imagine audio is not either. Apologize for the delay on getting some content out when the Pryor news hit, but some Wi-Fi issues. So we're going to discuss it. Better late than never. And the decision that we were keeping tabs on over the past couple of weeks, one that was going to determine how Louisville would operate to finish the portal class, was that of Kasean Pryor's. Pryor was likely going to come back, is what my intuition told me, but until we got the announcement, you really can't pencil anyone in because of how NIL and the transfer portal have made things very interesting in today's college basketball landscape. But Pryor did announce on Tuesday afternoon that he is coming back, and this is pretty significant news for the Louisville Cardinals because you have your starting four for next season, the 6'10", 225-pound native of Chicago. In a couple of games last year, averaged 12 points, 6 rebounds, didn't shoot the ball that well, only 37% from the field, 15% from the free throw line. But overall, it was really tough for anyone offensively through the first 10 games or so for the Cardinals. During the battle for Atlantis, his play started to pick up. And even though he wasn't scoring the ball all that efficiently, his defense stood out. 1.1 blocks per game, 1.6 steals per game. I think that that's where you start, is you look at how great Pat Kelsey was in the transfer portal leading up to this week. I mean, he got his 3 targets on campus and got them all to commit within a week. And then the Cardinals have just been big chilling since then. Contrary to what other rival fans want to tell you about Louisville, quote unquote, missing out on prospects, which they have not. They've been just relaxing, waiting to see what the news was going to be from Nate Ament, what the news was going to be from Kasean Pryor. And Ament goes to Tennessee, and then all eyes turned to Kasean, and he ends up coming back. So you fill your last huge remaining need. You needed a 4 that could play alongside, whether it's a 3-guard lineup, 2 guards and Javon Hadley, and then one of now Sananda Fru or Ali Khalifa, because James Scott has unexpectedly entered the portal. More on that coming up here in just one moment. But you needed a 4. And I think one with the particular skill set of being able to stretch the floor and also defend, that's what you were looking for. So if Pryor ended up not coming back, then you're sort of in a hurry to try to find a player that maybe can play to that level, but also fills that skill set. And, well, there aren't that many players that really fit that mold. Kasean Pryor is a unit from a shooting percentage perspective don't really match up, but I take those with a grain of salt because of how little he played in the grand scheme and how it took some time for everyone to get used to playing with one another. 13 brand new players that ended up playing for the Cardinals. So he has the ability to shoot and stretch the floor. That's what I like on offense. I also love that he can bang down low, and he's really good as the roll man or in the pick and pop situations in the pick and rolls. So offensively, this makes a ton of sense. You have Michael Brown Jr., who is a great point guard that's going to come in. You've got other guards that are able to stretch the floor and shoot. And I think that Pryor doesn't have to be the guy next season, and that ultimately I feel like it's going to help him because at the beginning of the season last year, a lot of the gravity was surrounding him. Like defenses were planning for him. This was before Chucky Hepburn went on his insane run. This was before Rain Smith ended up just taking a huge step forward. Cardinals really couldn't get much going offensively, and Pryor was like the go-to guy that teams were singling out. And now you really can't afford to do that because you have, four really good guard options. You've got Javon Hadley back. You've got Sananda Fru, who I just had an episode on talking about why he's going to be better than advertised. And then you have Ali Khalifa, who I also think is a mismatch in his own respect. So not having to be the number one scoring option, I think makes Pryor that much more effective because he's able to be that secondary to tertiary level player. And then you go to the defensive side of the ball, or the defensive end of the court. I should clarify. This is where I think that he is most valuable because as great of the additions have been in the portal, I do wonder a little bit about the perimeter defense. I worry that there currently isn't a legitimate, true shot blocker on this team. I know that Pryor can block shots. I know that Sananda Fru can block shots, but there isn't like a premier shot blocker on this team as of yet, or as of right now. But I do feel like with Pryor's ability to switch on defense, guard multiple positions, he's got that athleticism. The Cardinals needed a point of attack defender. You don't have Chucky Hepburn anymore. Javon Hadley holds his own, but you needed someone in the front court, a proven guy that can be a good defender. And I think that Pryor fits that. And that's ultimately what you need. He's really good at running the floor, so he fits Pat Kelsey's system. And that's kind of the mantra of this segment is that Kasean Pryor fits this system. Like this system is tailor-made for him. And I know that there are some concerns about the ACL recovery, and those are very valid questions to ask because sometimes with big men, a player undergoes a major surgery and they don't have that same athleticism. They don't have that same bounce. I think some things working in Pryor's favor. Number one, his age in the grand scheme. He's 22, 23. And also secondly is that he's not this really heavy guy, 6'10", 225 pounds. I guess you could add a third thing. Modern medicine has never made it easier to recover from an ACL injury. Granted, it's not easy. It's sort of really mental just as much as it is physical. But in terms of recovery, modern medicine has never made it easier. So I have my small concerns, but I'm not like really overly worried about how Kasean's going to do next year. So, and arguably the most important part is the swagger that he brings to this team. You have some continuity. Even though he hasn't played, he knows this system because he's been here for a year. He knows what Pat Kelsey is wanting from certain players. You saw him act extremely lively on the bench when he was able to at points this season. And bringing that swagger on the court, something you need, that hard-nosed toughness. You've got it in Javon Hadley. You've got it in Kenai Roots. And now you have it in one of your star-level forwards in Kasean Pryor. So the more guys that you have that are coming back that bring that familiarity to the table, I think the easier it is to be able to instill this culture with the rest of the guys and have a little bit shorter of a transition period to where it takes players some time to get going. Because, I mean, there's going to be some bumps in the road to begin the season. We should know that. It happens with every team. But the more players you bring back, the better it's going to be. So I really like this. I love that Pryor's back. I imagine that if he would have entered the portal, he would have been one of the top 5 players that were in the portal, probably. At the very worst, top 10. And trying to scramble to find someone to fill that role would have been miserable if you are Louisville. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't have contingency plans, because there are still some good players in the portal, but finding a player that fits that need and has that specific skill set is not something that's easy. Like, you don't see these types of players grow on trees. So, Kasean Pryor is back. Louisville is a preseason top 5 team. Argue with the wall. I don't care. A lot of people are starting to talk about that. Oddly enough, the only people that are disagreeing mainly are those that are fans of the team about an hour and a half east of Louisville, Kentucky, which I am absolutely shocked that that is the case. But nonetheless, it wasn't just an easy portal window finish, because Louisville did get hit with some unexpected news. James Scott to the portal was fairly unexpected. What this means for Louisville, is he truly gone, and much more when we come back on this Thursday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are really here now, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if that bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's choosing my Houston Rockets or diving into player props for Jalen Green, who had 38 points last night, would have smashed the player overs, and much more. FanDuel is the place to go. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Cardinal fans, want to take the time again to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Do want to once more apologize for not having multiple episodes since Monday. Travel has made it difficult, taking a little bit of time for a small vacation to Texas. So I appreciate you all for understanding. Wanted to get an episode before I got back later this weekend, but also to talk about more content. Probably not going to come until, I would say, Sunday, maybe Saturday. It really just depends. Travel schedule is kind of hectic, but we'll see how things go. But some pretty unexpected news on Tuesday evening, right in the 11th hour. News started to circulate. I think it was Jody Demling that put this on his board that I saw screenshots on Twitter. Not my information, but James Scott was entertaining going to the portal. Apparently, this is something that the staff found out late in the previous weekend and have since tried to convince him to stay. And ultimately, he ends up going into the portal, one of the better center players that are in currently. But is he truly gone? We're going to answer that in a second. I'm going to talk about this whole notion, or the whole situation in which he entered the portal, because nothing has really changed with Louisville. Sananda Fru had been committed for multiple months. You knew Ali Khalifa was coming back. You knew that there was a really good chance that Kasean Pryor was returning. Like, there wasn't much done to the front court via the portal, especially the 5 spot. Like, the Cardinals haven't gone after any other big men outside of the 3 that they currently had on the roster. And if they had reached out to some, it obviously did not get as serious as potentially adding another player. Well, what that means is that James Scott has known what his role is likely going to be. Nothing has changed roster-wise. So one of two things happened. Number one, he had a change of heart and left Louisville. I think that that's pretty unlikely. Number two is what we are seeing throughout the college sports landscape is that someone's throwing more money at a certain player. And I know that people want to claim tampering, and I get it. It's not ideal, but it happens all over the country. So kind of tough to, I mean, look, it doesn't make it right. Just because it's happening everywhere doesn't make it right. But it's also not something that the NCAA is going to be like, oh, you're right. Let me go ahead and punish that team. That's not going to happen. The rumors are that it's either NC State or North Carolina. I can't really speak to the accuracy of that, but it would make sense considering that James is from Fayetteville, so he would be going closer to home. But it does seem like more money was put on the table, which it does suck that James got entered at the very, very end of when guys can go into the portal, which kind of, it rubs you the wrong way because you're like, if you knew you were going into the portal, why did you wait to do so like at 11 o'clock the night before the portal closes? When the portal closes at midnight. Like, that doesn't sit right with me. It makes you just kind of sit there like, oh, okay, that's how it is. Again, larger picture in mind, wish James the best of luck with whatever he decides to do. It's not fully concluded that he's completely gone. Like, there is a chance that he could return. And I imagine that Pat Kelsey's doing whatever he can to try to make sure that he retains James Scott, because you can tell by the way that PK talks about him there. I mean, he loves James. James is one of his favorite players that he's coached. He raves about him. The coaching staff raves about him every chance that they get. Whether or not he returns, I feel like that's on James. So Louisville will have to pivot now and try to bring in a big man. There are some big men in the portal right now that Louisville likely will go after, and we will discuss that in the upcoming episodes and go a little bit more in depth into that. But replacing James Scott, this is going to sound like sour grapes. I don't want to be one of those people that's like, oh, we don't need him anyway. I appreciate what James did. I feel like James grew significantly this season. I think that he became a much better perimeter defender. I think he became a better passer throughout the season. Not much rim protection there, not much scoring outside of lobs and dunks and put back layups right by the rim. This past season, James Scott, one of the youngest sophomores in the country, averaged 7 points and 6 rebounds on 76% shooting from the field. He averaged 0.9 blocks per game and shot free throws 43.5%. 6'11", 230 pounds, of course, from Fayetteville, North Carolina. I don't think that James Scott is irreplaceable. That's what I'm getting at here, is that you can find someone to fill that role. Does it suck that James left? Yeah, of course. I'm not going to sit here and act like, yeah, James is not good. But the reality is that he was going to have to have a consistent lead between the sophomore and junior season to develop some semblance of a post game, to become a better rim protector. And there's a good chance that he could and will do that for another team, or maybe it's at Louisville. All I'm saying is now that is if he does not return, you have an opportunity to go out and bring in a player that could end up making a difference. Like, it's not a player that you have to add just to bring in depth, because at this point you've gone all in for the rest of the roster. It's probably a chance you go all in with the center as well. Not saying he has to be a starter, but a rotational guy that has a semblance of a post game, could be a good rim protector. A couple things you're looking for there: a guy that can bang down low and rebound. The main thing for me, and what kind of makes this tricky, is that the reality is that the market is super inflated. It seems like the Cardinals got some pretty good deals for the 3 transfer portal guards that they brought in. But the desperation here might work against Louisville because the demand dictates the market. We saw on the football side of things, even though a player might not be worth $1 million, the demand might be high enough to where they're going to get $1 million whether you give it to them or not. And with a limited group of valuable centers in the portal, it's going to be challenging. Louisville might have to overpay. That's the truth of the matter. But they've got the ability to do so. We'll keep our ear to the ground and follow this situation very closely. But for the remainder of the show, 3 new portal football commitments. We've talked about all 3 on the show before. We'll discuss when we come back on this Thursday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with the Fire TV Stick 4K devices with no console required. All you need is your paired controller and to subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you are ready to go. Also, with 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including the Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Into the final segment of this Thursday edition of the show from sunny Houston, Texas. Some significant news for the football team, of course. The transfer portal, the second window in the spring following spring practice, really short. Like 10 days short. Louisville had to identify the spots that they wanted to fill and fill them in a timely manner. And they got a commitment from Dakari Collins over the weekend. And since then, they picked up 3 commitments. The first one is from San Jose State wide receiver Treyshun Hurry. 6'2", 195-pound native of Palmdale, California, had 28 catches, 482 yards, and 2 touchdowns this past season for the Spartans, averaging 17.2 yards per reception. Hurry redshirted his freshman year in 2022, played 2 seasons, one at Weber State, one at San Jose State, and will have 2 seasons of eligibility for Louisville, I do believe. So you have an opportunity to have a player for the 2026 campaign. But nonetheless, Hurry will be able to contend for that wide receiver 3 spot with Collins, with Antonio Meeks, with Chris Hughes, and Jaden King. A guy at 6'2", really good ability to make contested catches, great route runner, and just an overall playmaker. If you're wondering how a non-power 4 receiver can translate his game to the ACC, well, just take a look at the offers that Hurry picked up in the last week. Not only Louisville, of course, Florida State, Miami, Tennessee, BYU, the list goes on. So there were multiple big-time programs that had identified Hurry as a guy that could come in and be an immediate contributor. One of the top portal wide receivers in the spring window. I know that the options are limited, but for Louisville to go out and get Dakari Collins and Treyshun Hurry, you're not only adding depth, which you desperately needed, but you're giving yourself multiple options to be able to run out there to where you don't have to just use Collins. You don't have to just use Meeks. I think that Hurry brings a different skill set. I think he's more of a home run type guy, averaging 17.2 yards per reception. So big play ability, that home run ability, take the top off the defense potential that we had talked about. So I really love this commitment for the Cardinals. Another pass catcher that the Cardinals have opted to bring in. Talent might be there, but the production is not. That is tight end from Utah, CJ Jacobsen from Meridian, Idaho. 6'4", 235 pounds, spent the past 2 seasons at Utah, didn't really see the field. A guy coming out of high school that Scott Satterfield and company really wanted to come to Louisville. I think he probably visited Louisville back then, but I'm not too awful sure. But ends up finally coming to the Derby City 2 years removed. And for Jacobsen, a player that was primarily utilized as a wide receiver in high school, you sort of worry what that role is going to look like. This is one of those multiple year options that Brom and company just believe in the skill set, and they're hoping that he can be a low risk, medium to high reward. Because at this point, what you're trying to do is give yourself as much depth as possible. Dylan Mesman, Grant Hauser missed the spring game, missed a good amount of spring practice. You have Jaleel Skinner, who's more of that H-back, who looked really good in the spring game. You also have Nate Kariski, but you need multiple options. You need options that if players go down, you can plug in and have them play right away. So I don't mind this. If you have multiple scholarships, I'm all for doing whatever you can to fill any types of gaps. And it was Grant Mulligan on Mondays with Dalton Pence this past week. He made a good point. If you're looking for true starters in the portal, then roster management probably wasn't the greatest over the winter. And I don't think that Louisville's really looking for many starters. I mean, wide receiver 3, maybe, but you've got the other wide receiver spots filled in. So I'm okay with bringing CJ Jacobsen in. Going to the defensive side, another player that we had discussed as coming onto a visit this week was New Mexico State edge rusher Justin Beadles. Spent the first part of his career at Virginia Tech, and then he went to Houston. Wasn't really able to see much of the field at either of his first 2 stops. Ends up going to New Mexico State and has somewhat of a breakout year. 20 tackles, 0.5 sacks, and a couple of tackles for loss. Overall, 6'5", 270 pounds from Tyrone, Georgia. Don't imagine he's going to be a starter. If he plays himself into the 2 deep, then that's great. I think that this is another ultimate depth piece that say, hey, look, I know we lost Woo Spencer. We're looking to bring in some players that can, at the very least, give us some options if guys go down with injury. And at that point, you're just filling spots for depth. And that's all I feel like Louisville's really doing in the portal right now. You've got a couple spots remaining. I could see them bringing in an interior defensive lineman for depth. I could see them going with another offensive lineman to offset the Austin Collins loss and much more. But, of course, we'll discuss any news when we get it. But that is going to wrap up this Thursday edition of the show. Thanks for tuning in to an impromptu remote episode of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here very soon. Go Cards.